They laughed when Maya Chen told them she couldn't work overtime, laughed when she asked for a day off to handle personal business. The hotel manager actually smirked when she mentioned needing to meet with a lawyer, saying, "What does someone like you need a lawyer for?" They treated her like she was nothing, just another janitor who should be grateful to scrub their toilets for minimum wage. They mocked her worn-out shoes and her second-hand clothes. They made jokes about how she'd probably die cleaning these same floors. What they didn't know was that Maya was the sole heir to a $200 million fortune. And when the lawyer's call finally came through, everything changed. What happened next made them all regret every cruel word. If you want to see the look on their faces when they realized who they'd been mocking, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This story will give you the justice you've been craving, and the ending will make you want to stand up and cheer. Maya Chen was 28 years old and life had beaten her down in every way possible. She scrubbed toilets at the Grandview Hotel in downtown Portland, earning $10 an hour while living in a studio apartment with peeling paint and a bathroom door that didn't lock. She'd grown up in foster care, bounced between 7 different homes, aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but a garbage bag full of clothes and a social worker's half-hearted good luck. No family, no connections, no one who cared if she lived or died. She'd managed to get an associate degree in hospitality management from community college, taking classes at night while working 2 jobs. She dreamed of managing a hotel someday, having an office, wearing nice clothes, being someone who mattered. But dreams required money, and money was something Maya had never possessed. So here she was, 6 months into working at the Grandview Hotel, invisible to everyone except when they needed something cleaned. The guests looked through her like she was a ghost. The management treated her like property, especially Gregory Hastings. Gregory Hastings was the general manager of the Grandview Hotel, and he was everything Maya despised about people with power. He was 42, balding, with a gut that strained against his expensive suit, and a voice that dripped condescension whenever he spoke to the housekeeping staff. He'd never learned Maya's name. To him, she was just you, or hey, or sometimes the new girl, even though she'd been there 6 months. This morning had been particularly bad. Maya had been on her hands and knees scrubbing the grout in the 3rd-floor bathroom when Gregory walked in with 2 investors he was showing around the hotel. "And this is our housekeeping staff," Gregory said, gesturing at Maya like she was part of the fixtures. "We maintain the highest standards of cleanliness. These people work very hard." These people, not our employees or our team. These people, like they were a different species. One of the investors, a woman in an expensive pantsuit, barely glanced at Maya. The other, a man with silver hair, looked uncomfortable. "I'm sure they do," the woman said. "Now about the rooftop restaurant renovation." They walked out, leaving Maya on her knees with a scrub brush in her hand and chemical cleaner burning her nostrils. She heard Gregory's voice fade down the hallway. "Labor costs are our biggest expense, but we keep them down by limiting overtime and benefits." Maya had stood up slowly, her knees aching, and wondered not for the first time if this was all her life would ever be. She'd tried so hard, worked so hard, and it never mattered. She was still invisible, still at the bottom, still drowning. The other housekeepers were kind at least. Rosa, who'd worked at the Grandview for 15 years, shared her lunch with Maya when she couldn't afford to buy food. James from maintenance always had a joke to lighten the mood, but they were just as trapped as she was, just as ground down by the relentless machinery of a system that valued profit over people. Around 11 o'clock, Maya was cleaning room 318 when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Personal calls during work hours were strictly prohibited, and Gregory wrote people up for the smallest infractions. But something made her pull out her phone and glance at the screen. Unknown number. 206 area code, Seattle. She stepped into the bathroom and answered quietly. "Hello? Is this Maya Chen?" The voice was male, older, with the crisp professionalism of someone who wore expensive suits and worked in glass towers. Yes, who is this? My name is Robert Thornton. I'm a senior partner at Thornton and Associates, a law firm in Seattle. I've been trying to locate you for 8 months. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Maya's first thought was debt collectors, even though she didn't have any debt. Her second thought was scam. I don't owe anyone money, and I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. Ms. Chen, I'm not a debt collector, and I'm not selling anything. I'm calling about an inheritance. Maya almost laughed. An inheritance. Right. She had no family, no relatives, no one to inherit from. This was definitely a scam. Look, I'm at work and I don't have time for this. Your birth name was Maya Lin Chen, correct? Born March 15, 1996, at Providence Portland Medical Center? Mother listed as Jennifer Chen. Father unknown. You were placed in foster care at age 3 after your mother's death? Maya felt her stomach drop. Those were details that wouldn't be in a scammer's database. How do you know all that? Because I've been hired to find you, Ms. Chen. I represent the estate of Margaret Lin. She was your mother's sister, your aunt, and she left you everything when she died. The bathroom suddenly felt too small. Maya leaned against the sink. My mother had a sister? Yes, Margaret and Jennifer were estranged for many years, but Margaret never stopped looking for you after your mother died. She spent 25 years trying to find you. When she passed away last year, her will specified that her entire estate should go to you. I've spent the last 8 months tracking you down to execute that will. How much money are we talking about? Maya asked, still certain this had to be fake. $215 million. The phone nearly slipped from Maya's hand. What? Your aunt was a very successful real estate developer, Ms. Chen. She owned commercial properties, apartment buildings, shopping centers. Her estate is worth approximately $215 million, and it's all yours. Maya couldn't breathe. This wasn't possible. This was a dream, a hallucination brought on by cleaning chemical fumes. Ms. Chen, are you still there? This is a scam, Maya said. This has to be a scam. I assure you it's not. I have documentation. I've been working with the Oregon foster care system to locate you. I flew to Portland this morning specifically to meet with you. Can you meet me today? After your shift ends? I don't finish until 4. Perfect. There's a coffee shop called Daily Grind on Morrison Street. Can you meet me there at 4:30? I'll have all the documentation with me. I'll prove to you that this is real. Maya hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was too good to be true. But something in Robert Thornton's voice sounded legitimate, professional, not like the obvious scammers who called about car warranties and student loan forgiveness. I'll be there, she said finally. Thank you, Ms. Chen. I'll be wearing a gray suit with a leather briefcase. I look forward to meeting you. Maya hung up and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked exactly like what she was, a broke janitor in a stained uniform with dark circles under her eyes from not sleeping enough and not eating enough. Her hands were red and raw from chemicals. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, defeated. $215 million. It couldn't be real. She finished her shift in a fog, barely registering Rosa's chatter or Gregory's barked orders. At 3:30, Gregory cornered her in the supply closet. You've been distracted all day, he said, standing too close. Is there a problem? No, sir. Sorry. I'll do better. You better. We've got a VIP checking in tomorrow, and I need this floor spotless. I'm going to need you to come in early, 6 a.m. instead of 8. Maya's bus didn't run that early. She'd have to walk, which would take an hour. I can't tomorrow. I have something I need to do. Gregory's face darkened. Excuse me? I said I can't come in early tomorrow. I have an appointment. An appointment? Gregory laughed, and it wasn't a kind laugh. What does someone like you need an appointment for? Let me guess. Food stamps? Welfare office? Maya felt her face burn. It's personal. Well, make it unpersonal. You're coming in at 6 or you're fired. Your choice. He walked away before she could respond. Maya stood in the supply closet, surrounded by mops and cleaning solutions, and felt tears of frustration prick her eyes. This was her life, being mocked by men like Gregory Hastings, having no choice, no power, no dignity. $215 million. If it was real, everything would change. Everything. She clocked out at 4, changed in the staff bathroom, and took the bus to Morrison Street. The daily grind was crowded with the after-work crowd, young professionals in expensive clothes ordering $7 lattes. Maya felt conspicuous in her worn jeans and faded jacket. She spotted Robert Thornton immediately. He was exactly as described. Late 50s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, gray suit, leather briefcase. He looked like money, like power, like someone who'd never had to scrub a toilet in his life. He stood when he saw her. "Ms. Chen? That's me. Please sit. Can I get you something? Coffee? Food?" "I'm fine." Robert sat and opened his briefcase, pulling out a thick manila folder. "I'm going to be direct because I imagine you're skeptical. 8 months ago, I was retained by the executor of Margaret Lynn's estate. Margaret was a real estate developer in Seattle. Very successful. She built shopping centers, office buildings, apartment complexes. When she died last year, her estate was valued at $215 million. Maya said nothing, just watched him with guarded eyes. Margaret never married and had no children, but she did have a younger sister, Jennifer Chen, your mother. Maya's throat tightened. "My mother died when I was 3. I know. Margaret tried to find you after Jennifer's death, but the foster care system wouldn't release information because she wasn't your legal guardian. She hired private investigators. They searched for years. When Margaret died, her will stated that everything should go to you, her only living blood relative. But we couldn't execute the will until we found you." Robert slid documents across the table. A copy of a will, property deeds, bank statements. The numbers were incomprehensible. "You're really saying this is mine?" Maya whispered. "I'm saying it should have been yours 7 years ago." Maya looked up sharply. "What?" Robert's expression darkened. "That's the disturbing part. Margaret's investigators did find you 7 years ago. You were 21, working at a restaurant, going to community college. They filed a complete report with your address, employer, school, everything. That report should have gone directly to Margaret. But it didn't. No, it was intercepted by a man named Victor Reeves. He was Margaret's business manager. He handled her finances, her properties, her investments. He had access to everything. When he saw that report, he buried it. Margaret died believing you could never be found. Why would he do that? Because of a clause in Margaret's will. If you couldn't be located within 10 years of her death, the entire estate would go to her closest associate and trusted advisor. That was Victor Reeves. He stood to inherit $200 million if you stayed lost. So he made damn sure you stayed lost. Maya felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Someone deliberately kept me from my family, from my aunt, from a life that could have been different? Yes. While you were cleaning houses and eating ramen, Victor Reeves was managing his future fortune and making sure no one ever found you. Where is he now? In Seattle, still managing what he thinks will be his estate. He doesn't know I found you. I wanted to meet you first, confirm your identity, prepare you for what's coming. Maya thought about Gregory Hastings mocking her this morning. Thought about 7 years of poverty and exhaustion and invisibility. Thought about scrubbing toilets while some man in Seattle sat in an office, managing money that should have been hers. What happens next, she asked. We go to Seattle. We present you to the probate court. We prove your identity with DNA testing. We execute the will. and we destroy Victor Reeves. He'll face criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. But I need to know, are you ready? Because once we start this, your life will never be the same. Maya thought about Gregory telling her to come in at 6 a.m. or get fired. Thought about cleaning toilets for $10 an hour. Thought about being invisible and powerless and mocked. I'm ready, she said, and I want to be there when Victor Reeves finds out. I want to see his face. Robert smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who loved watching bad people lose everything. Oh, Ms. Chen, he said, you're going to love what I have planned. The DNA test came back in 3 days. Maya Chen was definitively, irrefutably Margaret Lin's niece and sole heir. Robert Thornton filed the necessary paperwork with the probate court in Seattle, and a hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Victor Reeves would be notified that a claimant had come forward. Robert assured Maya that Victor would show up ready for a fight. He's going to claim you're a fraud, Robert said as they sat in his Seattle office. He's going to say the DNA is fake, that you're an actress we hired, that this is all a conspiracy. He's going to attack your character, your background, everything. Are you prepared for that? Maya looked out the window at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere in this city was the man who'd stolen 7 years of her life, who'd kept her in poverty while he positioned himself to inherit millions that belonged to her. Let him try, she said. Robert had prepared her well. He'd shown her photographs of Victor Reeves, 53 years old, tan, with 2 white teeth and expensive suits. He looked like every corporate executive she'd ever seen in magazines, confident, entitled, powerful. Robert had also shown her the evidence. The investigator's report from 7 years ago with Maya's information, email records showing Victor had received that report, and the complete absence of any follow-up, any attempt to contact Maya, any mention of the report to Margaret Lynn. He buried it, Robert explained, deleted it from the main system, but investigators keep backup files. I found the original in a secure storage facility, filed under a different case number. Victor thought he'd erased all traces. He was wrong. The hearing was set for Monday morning at 9 a.m. Maya had quit her job at the Grandview Hotel on Friday, walking into Gregory Hastings' office and saying simply, I won't be coming in anymore. Gregory had looked up from his computer with irritation. You need to give 2 weeks' notice. No, I don't. I'm leaving, right now. Then you won't get a reference. Good luck finding another job without a reference. Maya had smiled. It felt good to smile at Gregory Hastings. I don't think I'll need a reference, but thank you for your concern. She'd walked out while Gregory was still sputtering, collected her things from her locker, and left the Grandview Hotel forever. Rosa had hugged her goodbye. I don't know what's happening, Mija, but I hope it's something good. It is, Maya had said. It really is. Now it was Monday morning, and Maya was standing outside the King County Courthouse in a new suit Robert had insisted on buying her. It was charcoal gray, professional, expensive. She'd never worn anything like it. The heels hurt her feet but made her stand taller. Remember, Robert said as they walked up the courthouse steps, don't react to anything Victor says. Don't get angry. Don't get defensive. Just sit quietly and let me handle everything. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Maya had expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic spaces she'd seen on TV. A judge's bench at the front, tables for the attorneys, rows of seats for observers. Victor Reeves was already there. He sat at the defendant's table with 2 lawyers, both men in expensive suits. Victor himself looked exactly like his photographs, tan, polished, radiating confidence. He glanced up as Maya entered, and his eyes swept over her dismissively. He didn't see a threat. He saw a janitor in a borrowed suit. That was his first mistake. The judge entered and everyone stood. Judge Patricia Morrison was 62, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd reviewed all the preliminary documents and didn't look pleased. Be seated, she said. This is a hearing regarding the estate of Margaret Elizabeth Lynn, deceased. I understand there's a dispute about the rightful heir. Mr. Thornton, you represent the claimant? Yes, Your Honor. Maya Lynn Chen, niece of the deceased. And Mr. Reeves, you're the current beneficiary under the contingency clause. Victor's lead attorney, a man named Donald Price, stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client has been managing Ms. Lynn's estate for 15 years and was named as beneficiary in the event no living relatives could be located. Well, it appears a living relative has been located. Ms. Chen, please stand. Maya stood, her legs shaking slightly. You claim to be Margaret Lynn's niece? Yes, Your Honor. Margaret was my mother's sister. My mother died when I was 3, and I was placed in foster care. I never knew Margaret existed until Mr. Thornton contacted me 2 weeks ago. And you have DNA evidence confirming this relationship? Yes, Your Honor. Robert produced the lab report. Ms. Chen's DNA is a match to Margaret Lynn's DNA from medical records. The probability of relatedness is 99.97%. Judge Morrison reviewed the report. This appears conclusive. Mr. Price, does your client dispute the DNA evidence? Donald Price stood. Your Honor, my client questions the chain of custody for the DNA sample. We believe there may have been tampering or substitution. We're requesting an independent test. That can be arranged, Judge Morrison said. Ms. Chen, are you willing to undergo another DNA test administered by a court-appointed facility? Absolutely, Maya said. Victor Reeves leaned over and whispered something to his attorney. Donald Price nodded. Your Honor, my client would also like to raise concerns about Ms. Chen's sudden appearance. She's been missing for 25 years, and now conveniently, she appears right after my client was set to inherit. We believe this may be a fraud perpetrated by Mr. Thornton to claim the estate under false pretenses. Robert Thornton stood, and there was steel in his voice. Your Honor, I'd like to address that accusation directly. Ms. Chen didn't suddenly appear. She's been in Portland, Oregon for the past 10 years. She's held steady employment, paid taxes, left a clear paper trail. The reason no one found her sooner is because someone actively prevented her from being found. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Thornton. I have evidence, Your Honor. Robert produced a document. This is an investigator's report from 7 years ago. It contains Ms. Chen's full information. Address, employer, everything needed to contact her. This report was filed by an investigator hired by Mr. Reeves himself. Victor's confident expression flickered. The report was delivered to Mr. Reeves electronically, Robert continued, but it was never passed on to Margaret Lynn. In fact, it was deliberately buried, deleted from the main system, hidden in backup files under a false case number. Margaret Lynn died believing her niece could never be found, when in fact, she'd been found 7 years earlier. Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed. Mr. Price, do you have a response? Donald Price was whispering urgently with Victor Reeves. Victor's face had gone red. Your Honor, we deny these allegations completely. My client had no knowledge of any such report. Really? Robert pulled out another document. Because I have emails from Mr. Reeves to the investigator discussing the report. I have digital fingerprints showing Mr. Reeves accessed the file multiple times. And I have testimony from a former employee of Mr. Reeves who will state under oath that Mr. Reeves explicitly instructed him to bury any information about Ms. Chen. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Victor Reeves with open contempt. Mr. Reeves, did you or did you not receive information about Ms. Chen's whereabouts 7 years ago? Victor stood slowly. His tan seemed less golden now. His confidence was cracking. Your Honor, I receive hundreds of reports. I can't possibly remember every detail. That's not what I asked. Did you receive information about Miss Chen's whereabouts? Victor glanced at his attorneys. They gave him looks that said, "Don't lie to a judge." I may have received some preliminary information, Victor said carefully, But it was inconclusive, not worth pursuing. Not worth pursuing? Robert's voice was sharp. The report had her full name, social security number, current address, and employer. What exactly was inconclusive about that? Victor's mouth opened and closed. He had no answer that wouldn't incriminate him. Judge Morrison sat back. Mr. Reeves, I'm going to ask you directly, and I remind you that you're under oath. Did you deliberately withhold information about Ms. Chen's whereabouts from Margaret Lynn? The courtroom held its breath. Victor looked at his attorneys, at the judge, at Maya. For the first time, he really looked at her, saw what he'd done. I want to speak to my attorney privately, Victor said. Denied. Answer the question. Victor's face went from red to pale. His hands were shaking. The confident executive was gone, replaced by a cornered man watching his life collapse. I didn't withhold anything, he said, but his voice was weak. You're lying, Judge Morrison said flatly. I've reviewed the evidence Mr. Thornton provided, the emails, the file access logs, the testimony from your former employee. You knew exactly where Ms. Chen was, and you buried that information because you wanted the inheritance for yourself. Your Honor, be quiet. I'm not finished. Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. You let this woman live in poverty for 7 years. You let her believe she had no family, no one who cared about her, while you sat in your office managing money that should have been hers. You deprived Margaret Lynn of the chance to know her only living relative. You betrayed the trust of a woman who employed you for 15 years, and you did it all for money. Victor said nothing. There was nothing to say. Here's what's going to happen, Judge Morrison continued. Mr. Chen will undergo a court-supervised DNA test. When that test confirms what we already know, that she is Margaret Lynn's niece, the estate will be transferred to her immediately. Every penny, every property, every asset. Mr. Reeves, you will receive nothing. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the prosecutor's office for criminal investigation. You'll be facing charges of fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. Victor collapsed back into his chair. His attorneys were already distancing themselves, literally scooting their chairs away from him. Your Honor, Victor said desperately, I can explain. No, you can't. Get out of my courtroom. Victor stumbled out, his attorneys following. Maya watched him go, this man who'd stolen years of her life, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. After the hearing, Robert took Maya to lunch at an expensive restaurant downtown. That went better than I expected, he said. Morrison hates fraud. She's going to make sure Victor faces serious consequences. Good, Maya said. She was still processing everything. The estate was hers. $215 million. It was real. Now comes the fun part, Robert said. You own 12 commercial buildings, 6 apartment complexes, a shopping center, stocks, bonds, art, jewelry. We need to tour the properties, meet with the management teams, figure out who stays and who goes. I want to start with the Grandview Hotel, Maya said. Robert looked confused. Margaret didn't own the Grandview Hotel. I know, but I want to buy it. Understanding dawned on Robert's face, followed by a slow smile. You want to go back? I want to go back as the owner. 3 weeks later, Maya Chen walked into the Grandview Hotel in downtown Portland. She was wearing a designer suit, her hair professionally styled, accompanied by Robert Thornton and a team of accountants and lawyers. She'd purchased the hotel the previous week for $42 million, paying cash. Gregory Hastings was in the lobby when she arrived. He didn't recognize her at first. Why would he? He'd never really looked at her when she was just a janitor. Can I help you? He asked, using his professional voice, the one he reserved for wealthy guests. Yes, Maya said. I'm the new owner. I'd like to see my hotel. Gregory's face went blank. The new owner? But we weren't told. You weren't told because I wanted to see everything exactly as it is. No preparation, no cleanup. I want to see how you really run this place when you think no one important is watching. Recognition flickered in Gregory's eyes. He was starting to realize who she was, starting to remember the janitor he'd mocked and dismissed. Maya? He said, his voice uncertain. Ms. Chen, she corrected. I believe you told me I'd never amount to anything, that I should be grateful to clean your toilets. Do you remember that, Gregory? Gregory's face had gone white. I don't. You also told me I'd need a reference to get another job. Well, I don't need a reference, but you're going to need one. You're fired. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to clear your office. You can't do this. I own this hotel. I can do whatever I want. And what I want is for you to experience exactly what you put me through. How does it feel, Gregory? To be powerless? To be dismissed? To be treated like you don't matter? Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Maya turned to her team. Let's tour the property. I want to meet every member of the housekeeping staff personally. They're all getting raises, effective immediately. $20 an hour, full benefits, paid sick leave, and I want Rosa Martinez promoted to housekeeping supervisor with a salary of $60,000 a year. As Maya walked through the hotel she used to clean, she passed the third-floor bathroom where she'd scrubbed grout while Gregory mocked her. It felt like a lifetime ago. It felt like yesterday. She found Rosa in the supply closet, the same one where Gregory had cornered Maya that last day. Rosa, Maya said. Rosa turned, saw Maya in her expensive suit, and her eyes went wide. Maya, is that you? It's me, and I have some news. You're the new housekeeping supervisor. $60,000 a year, full benefits, and you're never cleaning a toilet again unless you want to. Rosa's hands flew to her mouth. What? How? It's a long story, but the short version is, I inherited money, a lot of money, and I bought this hotel. We're going to run it differently. We're going to treat people with respect, and we're going to prove that you can be successful without grinding people into the ground. Rosa hugged her, crying. I always knew you were special, Mija. I always knew. Over the next 6 months, Maya transformed the Grandview Hotel. She fired Gregory and the entire management team that had enabled his behavior. She gave every hourly employee a significant raise. She improved working conditions. She brought in consultants to redesign workflows so housekeepers weren't destroying their bodies for minimum wage. And the hotel thrived. Employee retention shot up. Customer satisfaction increased. Revenue grew. Turns out when you treat people well, they work harder and care more about the business. Maya also became something of a legend in Seattle's business community. The janitor who inherited millions. The woman who'd been kept in poverty by fraud, but came back to build an empire. She started buying more properties, more hotels. She hired people from foster care, gave them jobs and opportunities and second chances. Victor Reeves went to prison, 3 years for fraud and embezzlement. His reputation was destroyed. Every article about him mentioned how he'd stolen from a woman in foster care, how he'd kept her in poverty to line his own pockets. He'd never work in finance again. And Maya? Maya Chen became exactly what her Aunt Margaret had been, a real estate developer who used her power to create opportunities for people who'd never had them. She established a foundation for foster youth, funding education and housing and support services. She spoke publicly about her experiences, advocating for reform in the foster care system and workers' rights. But sometimes, late at night, she'd think about that morning in the Grandview Hotel, scrubbing toilets while Gregory Hastings mocked her, being invisible, being powerless. And she'd remember how it felt when everything changed, when the lawyer called, when she learned she was worth something, when she walked back into that hotel as the owner and saw Gregory's face. That memory never got old. If this story gave you the satisfaction of watching someone who was mocked and dismissed rise up and claim what was rightfully hers? Don't keep it to yourself. Hit that share button. Send it to someone who needs to hear that their current circumstances don't define their future. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we're bringing you more stories about justice, revenge, and people who refused to stay down when the world tried to break them. Maya Chen was told she was nothing. She was laughed at, dismissed, treated like garbage, and she came back and bought the whole damn hotel. That's not just a feel-good story, that's a lesson. The people you mock today might be signing your pink slip tomorrow. The person you treat like dirt might own the ground you're standing on. Treat everyone with respect, not because they might be rich, but because they're human beings who deserve dignity. Share this video, tag someone who needs to hear it, and remember, no one stays invisible forever. Everyone's story is still being written, and sometimes the best chapters come after the worst ones.